Welcome to the football show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm today's host, Adam Binney, joined by Alan Ruff and Alison McConnell. Plenty on the programme today, lots to get through. We'll be discussing Ross Wilson leaving Rangers. The sporting director is headed down south for Nottingham Forrest, as well as building up to the big Edinburgh Derby on Saturday that will take place at Easter Road. Lots going on at Hearts just now. Robbie Neilson leaving the club, replaced by interim boss Stephen Naismith. But also, we heard last night that Robert Snodgrass would no longer take any part in this season. We've got all of the games to build up to this weekend as well. We had our reporters out at the press conferences. Kerry was out at Hibs, myself was at Hearts, and Patrick over at Fir Park for Motherwell. And finally, we will discuss the results from Tuesday and Wednesday's Champions League fixtures, as well as building up to tonight's Europa League fixtures. But first, before we get into all of the juicy stuff, we have another fantastic competition to remind you of. And if you want to be in with a chance of winning this competition, then listen to Ruffy and Sam very carefully here.
This week's competition is a chance for you to play a round of golf with Tam McManus against myself and Frank McAvenny.
To enter, you must subscribe to PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel and answer this simple question. Which World Cup did Frank McAvenny and Alan Ruff both play in? Good luck.
Good luck.
Alison, I've asked everyone this week if they're any good at golf. I've got to ask you as well. You fancy your chances now?
I've never played golf, ever. No. Never. No.
Well, enter the competition, you might have your first opportunity. Ruffy, have you had any messages, anyone that's fancying winning this competition yet?
Not yet, no, but certainly not with Peter. Because Peter posted, he's obviously abroad just now, enjoying himself, and he had a game of golf. First thing you have to know when you play golf, when you tee up, you have to tee within the boundaries of the tee-off pegs. Peter was 15 yards in the front. He just put a peg down and his ball in it and just hit it.
I thought Peter wasn't a golfer at all.
Well,
I thought he boycotted the sport.
Yeah, he did. He said he had, but no, he's out there. You know, he had a couple of holes and thing. But it was an amazing shot if he played it. You know, but as you know, the trickery and from tee to green can be used to your advantage.
Well, it sounds like Peter's made the most of his trip. We'll be getting him back on Saturday. Don't worry, you've only got 2 more days to put up with myself in the hot seat. We'll get into today's quiz question as well. So Alison, Ruffy, listen up if you can try and get this one. It's on screen now for all of our viewers. Who were the Hibs and Hearts managers the last time that Hibs won an Edinburgh Derby? Alison, I think it's been a while. I'm not too sure if you can remember the last time. Do you know who might have been in the dugouts for either side?
No, I'm going to have to think about it, actually.
Aye.
I'm going to have to rack my brain.
Ruffy?
Yeah, no, I'd have to think about it as well.
Can anyone chuck a couple of names at me just so we can get the...
And rule a few out.
Craig Levine.
I can't give anything away yet, but there's a few names to all our viewers as well. Let us know in the comments what you think the answer to today's quiz question is, and we'll read out the answer at the very end. But as we know, in Scotland, it has certainly been a busy day and a busy week for us all. The news broke last night that Ross Wilson would be leaving his role as sporting director at Rangers to take up a new similar position at Premier League club Nottingham Forrest. Ruffy, just your initial reaction to the news. I think the fans had been hoping for this one to happen, and it looks like Ross Wilson has made the decision to leave the club.
Yeah, there's a certain segment of the fans aren't happy the way that Rangers haven't moved on from winning the league, and they've got their own reasons for that. I just keep reading everything for Rangers saying, yeah, well, he was here, he's done a reasonable job. You know, he got them to the final, got some good money for some of the players he settled on. He has made some bad buys, but every manager makes bad buys. But certain segment of the supporters just don't want him, and he's been approached by a Premier League club. You know, so why wouldn't he go? I mean, you don't want to go to football games when people are putting up banners and signs saying get out and everything. So he's been offered a new job, and we'll see how he gets on when he goes there. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to get the perspective of some Rangers fans. If there's any Rangers fans watching, make sure to leave your views on Ross Wilson and his time at the club in the comments. I'll try my best to read some of them out. We can hear from Ross Wilson himself. He released a statement earlier today, which is now on screen for you all. It read, "I would like to thank the players, led superbly by Captain James Tavernier and the manager Michael Beale, as well as all those who have come before them in 3.5 years I have spent at Rangers. I would like to thank Douglas Park, Stuart Robertson and the board for their support. I wish John Bennett, a true Rangers man, a successful chairmanship. This is a great club and there are so many reasons for Rangers to face the decades ahead with optimism and pride. Thank you for your support. I wish everyone associated with Rangers nothing but the best for the future." Alison, it looks like that's a a goodbye message from Ross Wilson, but he's still thankful for everyone at the club. It's interesting that there's quite a lot of change going on at Ibrox just now. Chairman Douglas Park left his position earlier this month, and now Sporting Director Ross Wilson. Do you think that was maybe a bit of pressure from the fans at Ibrox that have forced those decisions, or do you think those were made by the individuals themselves?
I think a bit of both. I think everyone knows that there has been a bit of pressure and there's been some scrutiny on their positions and what they've offered. I think what happens when you don't have a winning team on the park is that every area of the club comes under the microscope. It's not just the players and the manager. People start to look at the infrastructure of the club, how successful the recruitment side of it is, how successful the departments are managed. I think if you have a winning team, so many of those questions just disappear. I think you just don't hear about them. But I think recruitment has been poor at Rangers. I think decisions have been poor. I think when you look at the performances at the weekend of the likes of from Ryan Kent and even to an extent Alfredo Morelos, I think when you give contemplation to the financial offers that came in from them for them at different points of their Rangers careers, I think now it looks like very poor decisions not to have cashed in on them when their stock was high, and then you can recycle that money into developing your first team. I think that would be a frustration that a number of Rangers fans would have at the maybe just a bit of myopia in terms of the recruitment and how the club is organised. But I do think when you don't have a winning team, then everything, there's no position that doesn't escape scrutiny. But I think Ross Wilson going has been inevitable as the campaign's gone on. I think the surprise is that another club came in and it was as straightforward as what it has been over the last few days. Yeah,
one of our viewers, Who Cares, saying that Ross Wilson has been a great success, but it's now time for someone that's new, that's good with contracts. Do you think that's maybe the reason as to why some Rangers fans have been a bit disappointed with his tenure, that key players like Alfredo Morelos and Ryan Kent have allowed their contracts to run out so long?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, there's a number of players now. Is it 9 first team players that would all be out of contract come the end of the season? It's a significant number. I think what you would aim for is a continuity at first team level, even though you know that players are maybe going to go and move on. I think you don't want a number of key positions all coming to the end of their contract simultaneously. I think that has been fairly short-sighted at times, and I think you can't underestimate just how much of a rebuilding job is necessary this summer at Rangers. Yeah, I think so many players will go. Yeah,
it looks like there will be a big change in the summer. So we can take a look now at all of the signings made under the stewardship of Ross Wilson at Rangers. Plenty of names through there: Hadji, Kamberi, Bassey, McLaughlin, Defoe, Balogun, Roof, Itten, Zungu, Simpson, Wright, Obafor, Sakala, Bakuna, Lundstrom, Sands, Diallo, Zukowski, Ramsey, Suter, Cholak, Lawrence, Loveless, Davies, Matondo, Tillman, Yilmaz, Raskin, Cantwell in order as well. Ruffy, I think by looking at that list, it doesn't look great. There's a few forgotten faces on there.
Yeah, there is, but I've said that if you could throw a bunch of players up at every club, not everyone makes it. The disappointment is if you paid a lot of money for somebody and they haven't fulfilled what they were going to do. But I think it's just my opinion, I think the Rangers supporters are a bit disillusioned with that fantastic year they had getting to the Europa Final. They're under the impression there is a large sum of money there. They sold Bassey, they sold the boy Patterson, they sold Aribo. So I think the perspective is there was about £60 million in this pot and you never done anything with it. But I'm sure the people in the know, in the board, would know exactly where all that money went, and if they were happy with what Ross Wilson had done, then you've just got to go on with it. But there was a lot of people had to be paid back. There was a lot of money, people had given money as loans that they had to be paid back as well. But Alison's right, if you're not doing it well in the park, people start asking questions. But to actually know the 100% of where all the money went, you would have to be in that boardroom.
Where do Rangers go from here? They've replaced the chairman with Bennett, but in terms of a sporting director, do you think they go and now get someone new, or completely scrap that position and just go back?
I think they'll go and get somebody new. I think they'll get somebody new. Rangers keep firing out at this precise moment in time. There's no gap there on a one-off game. There's no gap, and you have to agree with that. But they'll be looking for longer than that. They need to have the consistency. They need to start, overtaking Celtic. But that isn't the case just now. But they'll be hoping by the end of the season they can turn one of the games over.
Alison, can you clear up for us exactly what a sporting director or director of football might be involved in at a football club. I think there's a lot of fans. I've seen fans on Twitter today saying, "Oh, just get rid of one, let Beale make all of the decisions." But I think in modern day football, the role is developed, and that's maybe not communicated to fans well enough what it is. Can you just kind of give us an insight as to what Ross Wilson might do on a day-to-day basis at the football club?
Yeah, I think obviously it would be very individual to specific clubs. I don't think that role would be the same when you go into different clubs. I think the remit is very different. I think a big part of his role was in identifying players in the recruitment side of it. I think it's naive to think about what you're saying there, that a manager, Michael Beale, takes charge of that element of it. I think that just doesn't tend to happen as much. Now I know you can point to maybe Ange Postecoglou at Celtic is slightly different because he had knowledge of a market and a league that very few people around him did, and it's been very successful in terms of Celtic going over to the G League and bringing players in and integrating them into Celtic. But by and large, it's although managers have a say, it's fairly unusual your manager would be out identifying players because they've got so much else to do. They might always have final call on who comes in, who goes out, and again, not at every club, but I think there are arguments to say that it's a fundamental role in the modern look of how clubs are run. I would be in favour of it. I think it helps alleviate pressure on the football department. I think it offers a line of demarcation almost about what you are in charge of, and you can work together between the boardroom and the manager's office and try and all pull in the same direction. The problem is that what you've seen before in the past sometimes is that you have people pulling in very different directions, and finances becoming a headache and becoming a problem, and before you know it sometimes you can have real issues in terms of what people want to bring in and what the limits are and what they can do, and there are frustrations that start to come to the fore. But by and large, for me, I think as a modern entity, I think it makes perfect sense to have a sporting director. So
you say that a big part of that is the talent identification and the recruitment. Roughly, if we're looking towards this summer, Rangers will, you would imagine, probably have plans in place for players they've identified and would like to try and bring to the football club. With the sporting director leaving, do you think that changes plans for the summer now? Do you think Michael Beale, who might have had some targets floated to him before, those might not be on the table anymore, or he might like to take the club in a different direction if he has more power? Do you think that this completely changes their recruitment strategy?
I agree with Alison. I don't think Michael Beale would want to get involved on 100%. I mean, he'll identify players, there's no doubt about that, but I mean, if you're a manager of a football club at Rangers, can you imagine sitting in an office all day? You wouldn't have any time to do anything else. You've got to delegate, you've got to, pass it about. I think there will be somebody there who will, I would like to think that they have a list. Beale has a list of players that he's identified them already, and then the board tell him, this is what you've got. He's already been on record and saying, I've got a healthy budget. So he knows the budget he's got, so now he's got to identify players, and that person has go and get the players, and that for me, that is the job, is getting the player at the right price, because I wouldn't like to think, I think Ross would have had something to do with a lot of the players, but I think the manager would have the main say at the end of the day. So it might be a new way that they're going to do it. We'll just have to wait and see. But as you've said, and I think it was Alison said, there's 9 or 10 players out of contract. So they'll have to be working extremely hard, because it's very difficult, first of all, to get players off a good wage and get the right people in at reasonably the same wages.
Yeah. Ross Wilson leaving Rangers for Nottingham Forrest. The sporting director has left his role. Another man in Scotland who is leaving his club is Robert Snodgrass at Hearts. He won't be taking any part for the remainder of this season for Heart of Midlothian. Alison, this one's a little bit of a sticky situation. No one really knows what's going on behind the scenes, but we're not quite privy to what's going on in the dressing room. But it sounds like there's maybe been a little bit of animosity between Snodgrass and potentially some other players or the new manager.
Yeah, I think it's. I was taken aback by it. I thought it was surprising, the timing of it, when you're coming to the conclusion of the campaign. He's a very experienced player. Hearts are still in this fight to go and get third, and the financial difference between third and fourth is significant. I would have thought they would have wanted him. I would say I was at Rugby Park a couple of weekends back when Kilmarnock won, and Robert Snodgrass came in and spoke to us. He spoke to the media after the game, and you could sense his anger at the result. He was a bit critical of maybe the mentality within the squad and within the dressing room, and he made a comment as he left. He was saying there, you know, you have your headlines now, and there was nothing particularly controversial about what he said, but I just wondered if he'd felt that he'd overstepped a mark by offering a very veiled criticism of those round about him. But it would make you think that maybe that perhaps goes a bit deeper. But certainly I was surprised by it, and I think when it comes to that point where the club have decided that it's best that he moves on and they sever ties completely, then I think it would indicate that there's an entire breakdown of communication somewhere along the line.
Yeah, roughly, Alison detailing public criticism from Snodgrass of teammates and perhaps the way Hearts are playing. Do you think that suggests that he's been in that dressing room, and we know that he demands high standards? He's a player of his quality that's played at his level, always will be. But do you think there's maybe a time and a place to be critical, and if he's doing that in the changing room, that might have been of what's led to him leaving now?
There's definitely something happened behind the scenes. There's more than some words have been exchanged. Snodgrass was a Robbie Nielsen signing. You know, Robbie's no longer there. Maybe they had some kind of relationship, how many games he was going to play or how many he wasn't going to play, and obviously that's changed. So he's went and chapped the new manager's door, and Stephen Avey, and just said, I want to win. You know, what are you expecting of me from now to the end of the season? Stevie's obviously said to him, well, in my mind, you're suspended anyway. I don't see you figuring very much in my team from now to the end of the season. So they've just said, well, I'm going to leave now, you know, and you just move on. And if Stephen Naismith thinks that he's not going to be a big player for him, then it's the best thing for everybody.
Alison Blackadder in the comments saying that Snoddy has been treated appallingly. Again, we don't know exactly what's going on, but are you surprised that Stephen Naismith didn't want to keep him for this run? I think there's 7 games left, and it's a crucial time for Hearts, and a player of his quality, you think maybe even if he wasn't going to play many games, could have still made a big impact for Hearts for the rest of the season?
On paper, I would have thought so. If you present it that way, you would think it makes sense to hang on to him. What you would say is that Stephen Naismith is an inexperienced manager, but he's a very experienced player. He's come through dressing rooms all his career, and I think if he's come to the conclusion that it's a malignant influence almost, or if there is a distraction there, and it makes more sense for him not to be in the squad, you would have to trust his judgment on it. I think you would have to say he's made the decision for the best of the club and with the best interest of the club at heart, without any of us being privy to what's actually happened.
Yeah, well, I was at the press conference this morning, and it was insinuated by Captain Lawrence Shanklin that it was a decision that was already made before Naismith was there. It's perhaps a boardroom level decision. So again, we don't know whether Stephen Naismith had anything to do with this or not. So we can't confirm whether it was the manager the new interim boss that actually made this one. But roughly, Stephen Naismith speaking to the media for the first time this morning. New interim boss at Hearts. We spoke yesterday. Obviously delighted for a former PLZ pundit to get that job. How do you think he'll fare this weekend in his first Edinburgh Derby? It's some start, isn't it, as a manager?
It's a right big one. But any time we had Stephen on the show, we knew that was his target eventually, to do all his badges, and he got a quick call into the Scotland setup, which I think will have helped him as well. And it was always his ambition to be a manager. I don't think he thought it would become this quick at Hearts. So it's a big one. I think he'll be very motivated by it. I think he'll be good in the dressing room. As you said earlier, he demands a high standard because he had it himself, you know, and he was at Everton and Rangers, and you know, so you would expect. The good thing about it is he's going to get respect, because the players that are there have worked with him for a wee while, so they know the standards that he expects. So you want to go into the game, you always want to start with a win. It's going to be a tough one. I don't think the two of them are playing particularly well. You know, so it's a toss of the coin to see who's going to win that one. But it's a good start for them, and I think the board have made the decision in light of how well Robson's doing at Aberdeen, how Kettlewell's doing at Motherwell, and they think it's going to work with Hearts as well. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on that one.
Yeah, well, let's hear from the managers and players themselves involved in this weekend's Edinburgh Derby, because we had our reporter Kerry Pollock out at the Hibs training centre to bring you preview reaction from both sides.
It's the Edinburgh Derby this weekend. Hibs and Hearts go head-to-head at Easter Road this Saturday, and on the run-up to this one, there's certainly been a lot of noise surrounding the city. After a 2-0 defeat to St Mirren last weekend, Robbie Neilson was shown the door, and after a run of few defeats, the Gorgie side fell to 4th. But Stephen Naismith says it's not the worst thing to happen to the Gorgie side.
In my eyes, no. You're coming up against the hardest fixtures you're going to have all season. So, it'd be nice, but for me, that's not the be-all and end-all, if I'm honest. Because the performances over the last 2 months, you're going from one extreme to the other. So the club have made the change to try and get a reaction. I firmly believe we will get a reaction, and what I've seen so far leads me to think that. But time will tell. The game on Saturday will tell. Next Saturday will tell.
Hearts captain Lawrence Shanklin says the players as well as himself take full responsibility for the sacking of their manager.
I think obviously when you go on a run results that we'd been on, pressure obviously does build, and in modern day football, managers seem to lose their job pretty easily when it comes to that. As his players, obviously we need to take responsibility for that, because it's us that go out there and put the performances in, and for us personally, they've not been good enough as a team, so that's obviously cost the manager his job as well. So there's a large part of it that we are responsible for, and we take responsibility for.
And the Hibs boss Lee Johnson says making it into the top 6 isn't good enough. He wants to be challenging for better things.
We want to secure not just top 6, but we want to secure European football. That hasn't changed. It doesn't change. It might not change Saturday after a win or loss or a draw. We're hoping that come time's kick off 12:30. Come sort of I suppose 5 o'clock. That we've secured top 6 and then have the opportunity to go and fight for European places.
What makes this derby very interesting, says David Marshall, is that both sides are gunning for European football.
The rivalry takes over in terms of just the Hibs Hearts thing. I think everybody feels they've got enough games to achieve their end goal, but this takes on the extra significance that both teams want to be in those European spots, and Hearts, after having that successful 3rd place finish last year, will want to continue that. So it doesn't get any bigger, the Edinburgh Derby, for both sets of clubs, but it does probably add more to it, that it's so vital in terms of the league positions.
It's the Edinburgh Derby this Saturday at Easter Road, 12:30 kick-off, but just who will take the bragging rights?
Right, lots to unpack there. We started with hearing from Stephen Naismith for the first time. Alison, interestingly, I think this took everyone by surprise this morning at his press conference, where he said that 3rd is not the be-all and end-all. I was speaking to Andrew McKinley, the Hearts CEO, on Tuesday, who said part of the reason that they removed Neilson from his position was because of the financial importance of finishing 3rd. They had to then get a reaction out of their players, but I mean, I think it's a strange one, but do you think he's maybe trying to cover his back for potentially at the end of the season?
He's basically just trying to puncture the pressure around the club, particularly given the magnitude of the game at the weekend. I think he's just trying to take a wee bit of pressure off. The reality is very different. I think it's absolutely they have to finish 3rd. I think that's exactly why Robbie Neilson lost his job, because the financial difference between finishing 3rd and 4th is worth millions of pounds, and football is a business, and if you want to continue to invest in your squad, then you need those resources to be coming in. And I think Stephen Naismith, as a manager, he's found himself in this position maybe unexpectedly. I think he'll just be trying to navigate it day to day and alleviate any kind of tension and pressure around the team. But I think for us as observers, the reality is very, very much that it's all about 3rd place.
Yeah, we'll get back to the Edinburgh Derby in a minute, because we can bring you some breaking news coming out of Rangers that women's coach Craig McPherson has been banned for 6 matches for his attempted headbutt on Celtic manager Fran Alonso. Ruffy, your initial reaction to that? 6 matches for the headbutt, do you think it's justified?
Yeah, that's obviously justified. Yeah, I thought it might have been a wee bit more than that, maybe 10, but 6 they've dealt with reasonably quick enough, to set a message out to everybody else, this is what's going to happen. So I think it's his first offence, so yeah, I'm sure he's learnt from it, and I actually think he might have lost his job through it. Rangers have set high standards with this kind of thing. They've got to send out the right message, but if it's 6 games, it's 6 games, and let's move on.
Alison, were you surprised that it was perhaps not longer?
Yeah, I agree with Ruffy. I thought the punishment might have been a bit more severe. I think that more or less takes him out of it for the remainder of the season now. But I think he's lucky to be in a job, put it that way. I think Rangers were very quiet in the immediate aftermath of the incident, and I think Fran Alonso, the Celtic coach, who was kind of headbutted in the back of the head, I think he was very magnanimous at the time. I think he spoke about not wanting him to be banned or not wanting to see him facing a lengthy punishment. He just wanted an apology. But I think the reality is that it could have been significantly longer. I think he's lucky to come off with a 6-game ban. Yeah,
back onto the Edinburgh Derby just before that. News had broken there for us. As I said, roughly plenty to unpack from that piece we just received from Kerry. So back to Naismith. I was there this morning at the press conference in Naismith. The way he was speaking, honestly, I felt like he was almost addressing the press as if he was our manager. Everyone was almost getting a bit like, oh, this guy is really motivating. Do you know what I mean? When you speak to someone and you feel like, wow, he's got a bit about him. And I'd never spoken to Naismith before. Do you think someone like that with a bit of character that can, I mean, if he's getting people like me up for an Edinburgh Derby that I'm never going to play in, then what's that impact going to have on players coming into the season?
It's going to be good. It's going to be excellent. He is very intense. I think if you ask any player that's played under him, and again, he demands so much during a game. If you think about the games, he's the one that's mouthing off to the referee. He's the one that's complaining about that, complaining about this. Just complaining about anything that's going on, and that's the standard that he set. He's a winner, and he wants to win every game. And when you've got that kind of mentality, sometimes you drag the rest with you, and that's what they'll be hoping at Hearts, that the players can step up to his demands. And in the face of it, I think it looks like a good move, but the proof is in winning games.
Alison, do you think he could stay there beyond the summer?
I think this will be seen as an addition, really, for the role. I think what he does between now and the end of the season will largely determine that. I think if Hearts fail to get that third spot, I think it probably becomes quite difficult. However, if he guides them through the most challenging part of the campaign, he's going in the back of a run of very poor results and also poor performances. I think I've seen Hearts a couple of times in the last few weeks. They've been very, very poor. I think if he can get performances out of them and get results in, I think if he wants it, he puts himself forward. Then if he has something to show for what he's done, then he puts himself in the driving seat for it. I think at the minute his focus will just be on getting them through the next couple of weeks, and it's a huge game this weekend. I think derby games add a different kind of intensity to results. I think it also affects perception in the eyes of supporters, how you do in these kind of games. So I think he'll want to make an impression on the encounter. I think the last thing he'll want to do is come out on the back of another defeat. He'll know that there has to be a performance to match the stature of the game.
One of our viewers, Keith O'Flaherty, is saying that, I believe he's a Hibs fan, saying we will not get top 6 this season. Hearts will walk all over us again on Saturday. Would you agree? I mean, it seems to be a Hearts team in turmoil. Lost 5 in a row.
Yeah.
New manager. But do you think they still have the players capable to beat Hibs again?
Of course they have. Yeah. I mean, Hibs haven't showed any form whatsoever. Really two poor results. And if you read Tom McManus's column this morning, that
who's reading that? Refused to read anything.
He's got to be in the top 6, and I agree with Tom. If he's not in the top 6, then he will possibly go as well. But he'll go into that game knowing that if his players step up to the mark and produce the kind of form that they have shown in certain occasions, then they've got a chance. I think the two of them are getting into the game, and it's up in the air because none of them have showed any form whatsoever. So on the day, it's for me again, it's the big players turning up on the day and responding to what this means to the city, or a half of the city. So you've got to go into that game knowing if you win the game, you've got the bragging rights, and people will just forget about the games that you've had and the losses that you've had. So it's an important win for either one of them to move on for the rest of the season.
We heard Johnson in the preview clip we just got from Kerry there saying that he doesn't just want top 6, he's not satisfied with that. He wants to make sure that Hibs maintain their ultimate target, which has always been to finish in a European place this season, given their current form. Can you still see that happening, Alison?
No. Right, on the back of recent evidence, no. I think.
Was there ever a point this season that you were confident?
I think it's been an odd season for him. I think it's just been so inconsistent all the way through. I think their priority has to be top 6. I don't see them taking a European slot in the current campaign.
If they don't, Ruffy, if they don't manage to get top 6, Europe will come after that. Will come after the split. Also play for there. But if say they lose this weekend and throw away that top 6 position, is Lee Johnson in trouble?
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, I think we've already seen the Hibs board have standards as well. The same at Hearts. You know, they've got a very, very large crowd, talking about 15,000, 16,000 at home games. You know, they'll have targets. They'll have sat down at the beginning of the season and said, right, this is the targets, this is your target, and he'll have to go along with that. He'll say, right, give me a budget and I'll get you that, and he's got that, you know, and if he doesn't step up to the mark and doesn't achieve, then you have to look at it and say, well, you've underachieved, and so far this season, any manager that's underachieved has lost their job, and I think he'll be the same as the others.
We heard from David Marshall, Alison, talking about how both teams, because they're gunning for Europe, both teams adds that little bit to this match. You don't need it. It's an Edinburgh Derby. There's always going to be the rivalry and the emotion and everything that comes with that in this city. But given just how important this is for the outlook of the table, for both teams, just how important is this now? Because you look at it, if Nielsen was still there, you're looking at this match, whoever loses, the manager goes. Now that Hearts have brought a new manager in, Ruffy suggesting if they don't lose, if they lose this one, the Hibs manager could go as well. This just feels like an Edinburgh Derby on steroids. Yeah,
and I think that's felt like a recurring theme at times for Lee Johnson this season. I think he's been on the precipice a few times on the back of poor results, and then galvanised and come round. I think this game, I think it's important for both teams for very different reasons, but I think Hibs need a result. I think Lee Johnson needs a derby result. He's not had it yet. I think you need to show that you're capable of going and beating your rivals, particularly at a point when they're down. You know, particularly at a point when they're getting into the game on a sequence of results that Hearts are. Whether or not they're capable of doing it's another question. But I think certainly if you're of a Hibs mind, and the chap that wrote in to say that Hearts will run over the top of us, I think that's a sad indictment of the performances that Hibs have put in this season, that there's not more confidence that you're playing Hearts at a point where they're really there for the taking.
Yeah, so we're talking about the fans, Ruffy, not confident in this team getting a result, but if they do manage to pull it off at Easter Road, what would that do for the support of Lee Johnson if he finishes that game, walks off the pitch, claps the fans, Sunshine and Leafs playing, the stadium's bouncing? What would that do for him personally as Hibs manager?
Well, it's a kick on to the end of the season. You know, it gives you hope. You know, and you're positive. You'll be talking everything positive, and having been in the city derbies, I played in 18 Hibs Hearts games. I know it's everybody talks about Celtic Rangers games. Hibs Hearts games in the Edinburgh environment are as big, you know, and if you don't win them, then you suffer the consequences. But I think a win for either of the two of them will help kick on to the end of the season, because whoever wins it, there's so much still to play for. I mean, Hearts will still got something to play for. It means that Hibs, the pressure's taken off them a wee bit, but they've still got to win the rest of the games.
I asked Alison, I'll ask yourself, do you think Hibs will finish in the top 6?
Yeah, I think they will just sneak in, because I think Livingston are going to be a bit of a free fall now. St Mirren are the only ones that I think that are playing particularly well that might be a spanner in the works for them. Yeah,
St Mirren this weekend, Alison, play Rangers, but they've been on fantastic form, and you see, I think it's just 1 point they need from their next 2 matches to secure top 6. Can they get anything at Ibrox this week?
I would doubt it, I have to be honest and say I think Rangers will come out and they want to react to the defeat at Celtic Park last Saturday. I think it'll be very difficult for St Mirren to take anything from it. I think you would imagine it to be a fairly straightforward afternoon for Rangers. You never know. I think football has a habit of surprising us, but I would have to say the expectation is that this isn't the game where they'll get the point that they need.
We've spent a lot of time talking about third place and how Hearts are trying to get there. The team currently in third, Aberdeen, what a run it's been under Barry Robson. Ruffy, they play tomorrow night, an unusual one when they play Ross County tomorrow night. Just how important is that to get a little head start on the rest of the teams? If everyone else is playing on Saturday and Sunday, they could have themselves 4 or 5 points ahead of the next closest team come Saturday.
I'd rather have points in the bag any time. You know, it's okay saying, we'll get 2 games to play to catch up on them, but you've not got the points in the bag. You've not got them, and when it comes to this stage of the season, it's cutthroat. No, everybody's got something to go for. Everybody's got something to play for, and you start getting crazy wee draws here and there. So if you've got points in the bag, you know, it makes it a lot easier for you.
As a player, is that something you prefer? Did you prefer playing the early games and play the day before?
I'd much prefer, you know, having, say, 4 or 5 points ahead of somebody, and they've got 3 games to play, but the 3 games that to play might be against Rangers, Celtic or somebody else, so there's no a given that you're going to win these games. So if you're sitting there with the points in the bag, the pressure's not on you, it's on them.
On the flip of that, Alison, if Ross County win, the same advantage for them. They could pull 5 clear ahead of Dundee United, as they did last weekend from playing before. If you look at Malky Mackay's side, surely if they go 5 clear again, that dressing room's going to be bouncing.
Yeah, I thought they played particularly well last weekend against St Johnstone. I thought they were worth the win. I think they'll be desperate to put any kind of psychological advantage on them and put the pressure on Dundee United again. Dundee United answered it at the weekend. It's an opportunity to go and ask them to do so again. But also I think when you're in a position that Ross County are, is that every point is precious. That when you get to this point of the season, you need a bit of fight and a bit of heart, and you need to be battling for anything that you can get. And I don't think he'll have to emphasise that to his squad. I think at this stage it becomes about livelihoods if you fall out the top flight. So I think their position's clear, and the rewards for getting any kind of result are there.
Yeah, as Alison said, a win for Ross County tomorrow puts massive pressure on bottom club Dundee United. They face Motherwell this weekend, so we had our reporter Patrick Mullen out at Fir Park this morning to speak to Motherwell manager Stuart Kettlewell and midfielder Dean Cornelius.
Stuart Kettlewell spoke to the media this morning ahead of his side's fixture against Dundee United on Saturday. Kettlewell was full of praise for the job that Jim Goodwin has done since taking over at Tannadice, but he insists that his side will be ready for what will be a difficult game here at Fir Park.
We know it's going to be a real difficult game, and we know that we now go up against a team that have got their tails up and probably playing with 20-30% more confidence than what they had previously. So they've got a good team, they've got a good squad of players. I think it's been well documented that they'll feel they've underachieved this season, but like I say, I think we just have to really concentrate, and it's going to be a difficult game. It's going to be a tough game.
Stuart Kettlewell also provided an update on the number of players whose contracts expire at the end of the season, but wanted to remind the fans that his budget is not unlimited.
What we don't have is astronomical amounts of money. What we don't have is a massive budget at this football club. So certainly I know, or I've got a picture of the situation that will be at the football club moving forward, you know, into this next transfer window as it will be. It's not to say that we're dealing with absolute poverty, but there's obviously a cap on certain aspects.
One of those players whose contract does expire in the summer is Dean Cornelius. He also spoke to the media here today, but insisted he is only focused on the remainder of this season.
I don't want to get caught up in that. Obviously, I've came from a position where I've not really played as much throughout the start of the season as a regular in the team, and since the managers came in, I've played majority of the games, started all of them. So for me, I just want to focus on playing my football until the end of the season and try and stay in the team. Competition's obviously healthy in the squad, so I just want to be focused on that at the moment.
It had to hit 9.
So, Alison, 20-30% more confidence, says Stuart Kettlewell. If they managed, 20-30% more confidence Dundee United have from winning last weekend against Hibs. Is it always a tough time to play these bottom sides when they do get a win that can spring them up like that?
Yeah, I think teams are dangerous when they're in the position where they're just fighting for absolutely everything.
Is that particularly important for this game though, because Motherwell are, you wouldn't imagine they're going to finish in the top 6 unless Hibs lose 2 games and they win both their games. They're not going to go down. They don't really have much to play for, but Dundee United, every point matters for their life.
I think there's definitely an element of that. I think I'm fairly certain Stuart Kettlewell, that's not the message he'll be giving. He'll be saying top 6 is still in our hands, and the last thing they would want is for Hibs to slip up across the next 2 games and you've not taken advantage of it by doing your job. So I think he'll want to keep his players focused. He'll want to ensure that they sustain the form they've been on. It's also early days for him too, having just gone into the club a couple of months ago, so he'll be wanting to continue in the same vein as he's been on. But I would agree with you. I think teams can be difficult to play against when they're in this position, because every point is a prisoner and every point can change the situation. I have to say, Dundee United, for me, I don't know that they'll get out the back. I think just now, for me, it looks as though they would be the team that could go down.
If they do manage to get something at the weekend, Dundee United, which is absolutely conceivable to think that they could muster up a victory. Kelly play Celtic on Sunday, just as you were talking about. You wouldn't imagine Kelly are going to be able to get anything from that game. If United get a win, Kelly lose, all of a sudden you're looking like it's not beyond the realms of possibility for Dundee United to even get a 10th place finish.
Yeah, well, that's what Dundee United they'll be speaking about it. Obviously the players will be aware of it. You just brought it up. I'm sure the managers are aware of it as well, that they're at Celtic at the weekend. It's an ideal opportunity to close the gap, you know, but they've got to put in a performance. I mean, Motherwell are playing particularly well just now, but I think if it's Dundee United, it's stop Van Veen. You know, that he's the main man. You know, if he's not scoring goals, you know, you've got a chance. So they've got to do something, but they'll be encouraged by that win last week. You know, training would have been better. You know, everybody would have been walking about with a smile on their face. So they'll go into the game with a wee bit of confidence. They know they're not playing one of the top 6, so they've got a chance.
Yeah, there's a big debate about who's going to go down this season, but there's a bigger debate raging in the comment section just now, Alison. The comments are arguing about who's the better host, myself or Peter. I've got to say, Alan Woods is absolutely in the Adam Binney corner. Yeah. I just want to know your thoughts.
Is that uncle?
It's not, no, I'm not really. It's actually my dad. He's made a fake account.
I think you've done very well, Adam.
I'm just using this for a little ego boost for those that are not particularly and keep the comments coming. Happy to take on any advice from any viewers. Peter will be back on Saturday, don't worry, the old uncle is back, but thank you to Alan Woods for looking out for me and backing me up in the comments. Anyway, back to the football and what really matters. We said the real debate is who's going to go down. I know I keep asking, but it changes every day. I've asked Ruffy plenty this week, but Alison, who do you think?
Yeah, I think Dundee United, I know they got a good result at the weekend and showed a bit of spirit to get it against Hibs. I've seen them a few times and I think every time I've come away thinking they've been very poor. Kilmarnock, I think their home form might just keep them in, but I think it's the likelihood for me is it's probably going to be between those two.
Do you think St Johnstone could get dragged into a relegation battle here as well? They play Livingston at the weekend, of course. Livingston, massive game for them. If they win, they bolsters their chances of top 6. They've given away 4,000 free community tickets to members of the Livingston community as well. If they lose that one, you never know, they could be, I think, is it 5 off they are of Ross County just now?
Yep, I think so. But yeah, Callum Davidson certainly thinks so. I know after the defeat last weekend, he was saying that's the advice to his players, reminding them that you're in a relegation fight here. You were in it last season. You need to do the same things to get back out of it. I think they probably are safe, but I think their form would probably give some cause for concern because it's not been fluent at all. I think they've been very poor. They offered so little against Ross County in an attacking sense. Last weekend I thought they were very insipid, and I think there is a danger that if teams round about you start picking up points when you're not, then all of a sudden within 2 or 3 games you really can be in the mire.
Errol Campbell in the comments saying I've not asked anyone who's going to win the league. I don't think we need to have that discussion anymore. I believe that one
sure.
is already sold. I think you know who we think is going to win that one. Let's just have a little recap of this weekend's fixtures as well. Again, tomorrow we'll be previewing each match in more depth. So on the screen for you just now we will have the fixtures for this weekend. We'll start on Friday night as Ross County host Aberdeen. And it's a big one on Saturday, the early kick-off as Hibs host Hearts. Then Livingston versus St Johnstone on the Saturday 3 o'clock kick-offs paired with Motherwell and Dundee United, as well as Rangers and St Mirren. Then on Sunday, Kilmarnock take on Celtic at Rugby Park. Now from Scottish football, which we've loved to have the drama of it this season, I thought I was getting a little bit of a break from the news stories, but they just keep coming beyond Scotland as well. We had plenty going on in the Champions League this week, starting with the big one on Tuesday. Roughly was Manchester City versus Bayern Munich, finished 3-0 to Man City. We'll just take a look just now at all of the results from across this week. Started, as I said, with Manchester City defeating Bayern Munich 3-0 at the Etihad in a shock 2-0 victory for Inter Milan over Benfica in Portugal. Real Madrid beat 10-man Chelsea 2-0, and another shock as well, AC Milan 1-0 victory over Napoli. We'll go through them all in detail and I'll explain why I called a couple of them a shock. First of all, Ruffy, City 3, Bayern Munich 0. Just I watched that game, I was blown away by how good Man City were. You must have been the same.
Yeah, well, we keep talking about this should be Manchester City's year, and if they produce that kind of form, you know, they're going to be hard to stop. You know, that I didn't see it being as convincing as that, but it could have been more. And they're absolutely flying. I think they still know there's going to be a game over there in Germany, but I think they've done enough in this one. And semi-final, if it goes the way to plan, it could be fantastic.
Is it over, Alison? Is the tie over?
I would think so. You never know. I think Bayern Munich get an early goal, but for me, I thought Man City just looked head and shoulders above them.
Yeah, one interesting point I noticed in the game was John Stones stepping into midfield, a player that I never thought would have taken up that role with the quality and depth that they have in there. Just how impressed were you with the Englishman playing in that position? I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I thought he'd done well, and I think when you look at the squad and the depth that Man City have got, I think the fact that he's chosen to go in and play there suggests that he has the trust of his manager to go and do it. But I thought it was a very comprehensive win for Manchester City. Like Ruffy, you just wonder if this might be their year this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone's been wondering if it's finally going to be Pep's year at Man City. For Bayern Munich, it's not looking great at the minute. I don't know if you've seen the story from Sky Germany that there was a reported bust up in the changing room between Leroy Sané and Sadio Mané. It's just broken there from Fabrizio Romano saying that Sadio Mané has been suspended as a result of that. I believe there was a punch thrown in the dressing room. Leroy Sané was left with a bleeding lip. Sadio Mané was then forced to travel home in a private plane separate from the team plane. I mean, it's just gone from bad to worse for City and Bayern, but when they're still in the middle of a title race, Ruffy, you can't be having that in the dressing room. That's surely only going to have a bad impact on the team.
No, but it just shows you that football players, a lot of the individuals treat things differently. You know, some of them can't handle their temper, you know, and things like that do happen in a dressing room. You don't want to see it happening. You want your team to be all pulling in the right direction, but unfortunately in football, you know, the temper's phrase at the end of the game. Somebody says something you're not happy with, and some players react, some players don't. But no, they've dealt with it very quickly, you know, which I think is always a good thing. You've always got to think of the whole team rather than individuals. I know they're big individuals, but you know, I think they'll move on for that, you know, and obviously they'll sort it out internally. But no, it's not good if you've got a second leg coming up.
Any training ground or match day bust-ups that you can remember? Any involving yourself?
No, not me. I love watching it. It's great watching it. It's great watching it, and it's usually, I don't know why, it's usually a wee guy picking on a big guy. You know, you're sitting there going, why are you hitting him for? Like somebody your own size. But no, I had a lot of good laughs. I had one with Tommy Burns and big boy called Colin McAdam. It'd take me too long to tell you.
Oh, come on, Nuffy, tell us the story, come on.
It was a Glasgow Cup tie, and the two of them were kicking lumps out of each other, and the two of them get sent off, and obviously Tommy Burns says to Colin McAdam, I'm having you, and we get you inside. But what the old Partick Thistle, they used to be, the home dressing was here and the away dressing was way down the bottom, and we were refurbishing the away dressing room, so the builders were in sort of a, you know, tampering with the structure and everything. So Tommy Burns obviously got in the dressing room and was wise to what he'd just done, because Colin Cadden was 6'4", you know, he murdered him. So Tommy realised what he had done, and he just sort of ran in, and he ran away down the bottom end of the dressing room and went into the dressing room and shut the door. So big Colin went after him, and Tommy's obviously behind the door, so confident, and locked it, and he said, I'll have you, and all that stuff, and shouting. But what he didn't know is the builders had left all the open at the back, so while he was shouting them for the outside, big Colin was in the dressing room behind him, so I won't tell you what happened after that.
For the sake of those involved, we'll keep the rest of that one quiet. But the other game on Tuesday night, Alison, Benfica versus Inter, I said it was a surprise because Inter hadn't won in 6 matches prior to this. Benfica top of Liga Portuguesa with 7 points clear. Is there any way back now for Benfica? I mean, it was their home tie, they've lost 2-0. They've got to go to the San Siro and win by 3 goals. Yeah,
it looks unlikely, but what it does do is you would think that they have to go and try and get back into the game fairly quickly. They have to go and be quite open. I think the Italians are masters at exploiting that, so they could just pick them off and finish the tie. I think the next goal in that one is absolutely crucial.
Roughly 2-0 to Real Madrid over Chelsea last night. Do you think Real Madrid will be a little bit disappointed that they didn't capitalise on the fact Chelsea went down to 10 men more? They were with an extra player for a sustained period of time in that match and only managed to score one. If they had got a third, that would have been it over.
They didn't seem to be too concerned at 2-0. No, they just were sort of going through the motions, and we'll have another attack here, and if it happens, it happens. It doesn't. And then I think at the end of the day, you know, I would think they think 2-0's very, very confident, you know, that because Chelsea just didn't produce anything, you know, they had wee half chances here and there, but they're more than capable. Real Madrid are more than capable of going over to Chelsea and getting something out of that game. So, you know, I think that one is done and dusted.
Yeah, manager Frank Lampard certainly does not believe it's over yet.
The door is open. It's up to us whether we want to kick it open further next week or not. That's my immediate thought. I think there's a mixed emotion about the game. I think for the period of 11 men, we were in the game and we had some chances, and I think we can do better.
Aye, well, the man has spoken, Frank Lampard. We spoke the other day about Roberto Di Matteo, and he came in on interim charge. Was Thomas Tuchel not the same as well? Came in mid-season and managed to win the Champions League. What an achievement would it be if Chelsea were able to claw this one back against the best team in football history, if you like, in Real Madrid?
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
No.
I don't think. On the evidence of last night, I don't think it'll happen. I thought Real Madrid were very comfortable, so I think it could have been much more emphatic. Yeah, I don't see Chelsea coming back into the tie at all.
No. The final of the 4 quarter-finals that took place over the last 2 days, roughly, was AC Milan versus Napoli. As you pointed out, just as we were hearing from Lampard there, if Milan get through this one, it could set up a Milan derby in the semi-final of the Champions League. Just how huge would that be for the city and for their fans?
It'd be absolutely incredible. You know, I think the clamour for tickets for that would be unbelievable. But I think a lot of us are thinking Napoli have got something at home. You know, I think they'll definitely think they've got a goal or two in them, and it remains to be seen. As Alison just touched on, if you get an Italian team a goal lead, you know, you better be good in the next leg, because they're masters at just seeing the game out, and that's what they'll try and do.
Yeah, Napoli well clear at the top of Serie A just now. Alison, do you think once they get back to the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium for the second leg, they'll be able to pull it out of the bag, because they did lose there to AC Milan 4-0 just 2 weeks ago? Yeah,
I think they'll certainly feel as though they're still in it, that it's still live, but yeah, they've given themselves an uphill battle. To be honest, I actually thought they would have won that tie. When I saw all the when it was drawn initially, I thought they would have been pretty comfortable. They've had such a successful domestic season. I'm sure they'll go and maybe try and have a go and get themselves back into it.
European football doesn't stop this week. Tonight we have the Europa League to look forward to, as well as we always do on a Thursday evening. We'll have the fixtures on screen for you just now as well, and we'll get the thoughts of our two pundits, Ruffy and Alison. So, quarter-final time, Feyenoord versus Roma, Juventus versus Sporting Lisbon, United take on Sevilla, and to complete the quartet is Bayer Leverkusen versus Union Saint-Gilloise. We'll just run through them. Ruffy, Feyenoord or Roma? Who are you having for that one?
Roma for me. Mourinho in charge, you know, has got an unbelievable track record of getting these teams to finals and sometimes winning them.
Roma
for Roma as well. Yeah, well, they won the Conference League last season as well. United and Sevilla.
I'm going to go for Sevilla.
Over 2 legs.
Yeah.
Sevilla
on both. Why is that? The Rashford injury.
I think Sevilla have got a tremendous record in Europa or any European
I think
competition.
Rashford's a huge loss.
Yeah, definitely. But Sevilla don't lose that many goals, and I think they're more than capable of going there and getting a draw.
It's a good point you make, because I think they are the record holders, the record winners of this competition. No one's won the Europa League or formerly the UEFA Cup more times. And Sevilla, speaking about the impact of the injury to Marcus Rashford, so we heard that from manager Erik ten Hag, who has his replacement set for the informed striker.
We can bring Anthony Martial, slow back, but in the team, give him minutes, get him used to game at the highest level, to higher intensity. But I think already against Everton he was ready to start again.
Alison, big chance for Anthony Martial, but another 2 quarter-finals to look forward to as well. Juventus versus Sporting Lisbon. Who's your money on there?
I'm going to say Juventus.
Yeah,
I think Juventus should have enough. I think.
Yeah, tough season domestically for Juventus this season. Ruffy, do you think perhaps they can save it with a victory over Lisbon?
Yeah, I just think the teams that are in this run about this competition or any competition, European competition, when they get to this stage, they know how to see it out, and I think that's possibly the experience of the players that have played in them. So yeah, I'd probably go for them as well.
Yeah, the final fixture of the 4 tonight was Bayer Leverkusen versus Union Saint-Gilloise. USG was seen play Rangers earlier in the Champions League qualifiers. Who do you think will come out on top in that one?
I'm going to go for Germans to win that one.
Yeah, it's hard to look past Leverkusen, isn't it, Alison?
Leverkusen for me.
Leverkusen, too. Yeah. Well, we have heard our verdict from our pundits for tonight's Europa League fixtures. In case you missed it yesterday, of course, those who were expecting a show yesterday with a little day off. Ruffy had a fantastic time away for his lunch. He was telling us on his day off, but we still kept you covered. We had a fantastic exclusive 1-to-1 interview with the gaffer Peter Martin and Alec McLeish. Here's a little promo.
We're up a level again, Real Madrid in the final. But the teams previously, then they were sticky, you know.
Apart from Watershai.
Watershai was, the brilliant home performance, 5-1, and I remember Sir Alex used to invite the old pensioners in to watch training and stuff and bring them in the back. There was a wee room at the back where he gave them tea and that, and one of them was waiting on me the day after the 5-1, and he said, that away goal could be dodgy.
Yeah, great little clip there from it's that laugh from Peter. You always hear it all the time. I'm sure everyone's missed it. The hilarity in that man's laughter is fantastic. We've got another thing to promote for you as well. I'm sure if anyone's been on Twitter over the last couple of days, you'll have seen, Alison, I don't know if you've seen the official Livingston account having a little go at me. Have you seen me falling over the cone? I actually seen a Livingston fan call me João Cancelo. There was a few different names being banded around the office as well. I won't repeat, but I think this clip, Alison, just watch this one. Wasn't falling over any cones here. Here's me taking on Livingston goalkeeper Shamal George.
At Livingston, the PLZ Challenge, and I'm delighted to say the cream of Livingston Football Club is here to try and beat Ali Crawford's record of 7.4 seconds, and of course Shyness from PLZ, the greatest footballer never to be signed by anyone. Adam Binney is going to show the lads what to do, and then all these guys are going to try and beat the record, including the gaffer.
I'm not, my back, I would normally join in, but my back's coming.
So we're ready to go. Adam, show them the drill, halfway line. Oh no! Oh! 11 seconds. Right.
Bruce Anderson, he's got no chance.
Yeah, it was great fun. Livingston getting to film with the first team there. I'm sure if anyone's watched the full video, they'll know that the second attempt didn't quite go to plan. So make sure you head over to our YouTube channel when this finishes to watch the full version, so you can see me make an absolute mess of it in the end. If you want to do similar to me and embarrass yourself in front of professional footballers or ex-professional footballers, you can get involved in our competition as well, because you have the chance by winning this competition to play a round of golf with Tam McManus against Alan Ruff and Frank McAvenny.
This week's competition is a chance for you to play a round of golf with Tam McManus against myself and Frank McAvenny.
To enter, you must subscribe to PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel and answer this simple question. Which World Cup did Frank McAvenny and Alan Ruff both play in? Good luck.
Good luck.
Before we finish off, Alison, with the quiz question, the comments are coming in from everyone. I think Niall Kane and John O'Rourke are backing me, saying the cones can be tricky, says John, and Niall actually says that he's really impressed with my finish. He says that was brilliant, Adam. I don't know if he's talking about the show or the one I put inside the post on Shamal George. Just wanted to read those comments out because I always love every. Oh, there's Tony saying blame the surface as well. I think Livingston's had plenty of stick for that, so I'm sure there's no blame on the surface at all. We'll just get to the quiz question before we finish and reveal the answer. So who were the last the Hibs and Hearts managers the last time Hibs won an Edinburgh Derby? Any guesses, panel, before we finish?
No, I'm thinking Neil Lennon won a derby.
You think Neil Lennon, roughly? Any ideas?
No.
Can't confirm. Jack Ross was the Hibs manager the last time, and it was Stendhal that was in charge at Hearts. It was on Boxing Day in 2019. Hibs won 2-0, 2 goals from Martin Boyle, so it's been a long time, 3.5 years or so since the last time they recorded a victory. We'll have more build up to the Edinburgh Derby coming tomorrow on our football show before we then hear from both managers post-match on that one on Saturday. Make sure, if you want to stay up to date with everything going on across Scottish football and beyond, that you subscribe to PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel and follow us across all of our social media channels. We've got a big week again next week, but before that, I've got to say goodbye and see you all tomorrow.